Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed. We'll start in on a legal note this morning. It's the NBA week, so a lot of activities going on in Lagos, and part of what they're focusing on has got to do with facing the future, rule of law, and the future of human rights. Well, we've got Mr. Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, to give us some perspective on the goings-on. Thank you for coming on this morning, sir.
Thank you very much.
Is it a fair commentary when some say that lawyers, when there are questions of citizens who are suffering as a result of human rights abuses by different sections of the society, is it a fair commentary when they say lawyers are actually at the root of some of their sufferings?
That is very much true, in the sense that the country, the federal government, and each of the 36 state governments has an attorney general to give legal advice. That's number one. We call them the totality. I mean, the attorneys general are regarded as the official bar. I mean, for those of us out there, legal practitioner, private legal practitioner, we also play a role. I mean, take for instance, the Nigerian Bar Association has 125 branches spread territorially, across the country. And it is in the constitution of the NBA that human rights and the rule of law shall be defended. But what has happened over the years is that we have a new human rights regime in our country, on paper, that can be compared with that of any civilized or advanced bourgeois democracy. Anyone. Unfortunately, the official bar and the private bar have not taken the issue of human rights and democracy or even rule of law seriously. Take for instance, under the current political dispensation, no Nigerian shall be detained in any detention center in Nigeria without an inspection, monthly inspection of the facility by a chief magistrate or a judge of the Federal High Court. In other words, you can no longer have indiscriminate arrest and detention. The Constitution provides that anybody who is arrested by the police shall be taken to court within 24 or 48 hours. But there are Nigerians who are languishing in custody for months and years, and lawyers are not bothered. So if we take the Terrorism Act, for instance, as draconian as the law is, it provides that before you arrest a Nigerian, you will go to a court, Federal High Court, you go to the Federal High Court and obtain an order. If you want to search his house, you obtain an order, like a search warrant. If you want to seize his phones, you get an order, because your right to liberty, your right to the privacy of your home and your correspondent are constitutionally entrenched. So if you are going to violate any of those rights, you must obtain a court order. But what happens in Nigeria? You go and invade somebody's house in the dead of the night. When you have kept him for a few days, you suddenly realize, oh, I need a court order. You then rush to a court. No, that's not our law.
No, it appears as though the responsibility is shifting gradually to government or institutions of government. I mean, beyond lawyers. I mean, lawyers can only do so much.
No, lawyers can do so much. And that's what we have been doing in Nigeria until recently.
But you appear to be saying that this has not been well institutionalized. You said this is good on paper, but then institutionalizing it, enforcing it.
You need the bar to institutionalize them. For instance, I pleaded with the Chief Justice of Nigeria, former Chief Justice of Nigeria. I requested him, the Honorable Justice Walter Onoge, I requested him, please, Section 34 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act provides that Chief Judges shall designate Chief Magistrate to visit police stations. Of course, before then, I had written a similar letter to the Chief Judge of Lagos State, the Honorable Justice who just retired, and without wasting time, she designated the magistrate. We wrote to the Chief Judge of the Federal Capital Territory. Without wasting time, the Honorable Justice Ishaq Bello, he also acceded to our request. Instead of writing to each of the chief judges in the country, we now wrote to the Chief Justice of Nigeria. And again, without wasting time, a directive was given to all the chief judges in the state. Again, all of them have designated the chief magistrates to visit the police stations. Now, apart from the Korodu branch of the NBA, led by Mr. Bayo Akinlade, no other branch of the bar ensures that the magistrates are accompanied to the police stations. Now, I have a running battle with the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court. In spite of the directive of the Chief Justice of Nigeria and Chairman of the the National Judicial Council, the Federal High Court did not designate the judges to visit other detention facilities of the military, of EFCC, ICPC, and all of them. So today, we have not less than 150 people being detained by the Navy in various detention facilities, Calabar, Warri, Port Harcourt, and Lagos. In fact, 10 of the detainees have been kept in a ship, inside a ship, on Marina Street in Lagos for the past 13 months. 57 are in NNS cell in Apapa. Now, if the judges of the Federal High Court have been designated and they have been visiting these detention facilities, you won't have this illegal detention. Yeah, so that's what I mean by saying, on paper, yes, we're okay.
Okay, but
in terms of actualizing
let me,
the right,
if I could follow up on that.
We're not there.
How much can this jail delivery function of magistrates actually achieve if we don't improve on the wheels of justice when they say grind slowly?
No, you know what happens is that, particularly for the poor, and I'm not talking of the rich or the elite, you know, even though I'm his lawyer, I'm talking of Omoyele Sowore. When a judge ordered that he be kept for 45 days, we almost blew the roof of the house. You know, oh, how can you do that? This is draconian. And I simply laugh. Because there are Nigerians who have been languishing in custody for months and years. Now, when you now look at what is going on in our country, it's very simple and straightforward. That's nothing to do with the slow approach of our system. What I'm saying is, on a daily basis, the police raid communities. On the road, people are arrested and railroaded to jailhouses, to detention centers of the police. And on what ground? They say you are committing wandering or loitering. Whereas as far back as 1989, the law on wandering has been abolished. The vagrancy law was abolished in 1989. Yet on a daily basis, people are still being arrested for wandering. Sometimes they are even taken to court. Now you need a bar, a Nigerian Bar Association, that can walk, the president that can walk to the Inspector General of Police. Please, can we agree that this will never happen in our country again? This is a law banning wandering. This is a law banning media parade of suspects in Nigeria. If you must know, the Anti-Torture Act has banned parade of suspects, keeping anybody in underground cell, keeping anybody incommunicado. But sometimes when I've spoken with senior police officers, they are not even aware of the provisions of this law. Not to talk of ordinary, the lower ranks. But what has happened is that the poor and indigent people in our country, are on the receiving end of our.
Is there any way then to stem this tide? Because I'm sure you are aware that more than 60% of people who have not been tried, who have not been convicted, who are awaiting trial in the judge in the
over 70%
are there. So how do we are there in the correctional facilities now, not just prisons? So is there any way to stem this tide?
The only you can stem the tide is to be armed with the law. And the laws are adequate now.
But just as you have said, Mr. Falana, that some of these laws are there unimplemented, unenforced, and so many people are still being incarcerated unjustly.
You know what we are doing now is to mobilize the human rights community, to mobilize the bar. I mean, I do intend now to take advantage of this conference that is going on, to link up with my colleagues, and I've met with some of the chairmen. Please, when you go back, can we now become the guardians of the human rights of our people, particularly at the rural areas? And I'm very confident, you know, we're going to get there.
But, you know, do you agree with some lawyers who think that perhaps this was made worse, this power of remand that was recognized by the Supreme Court in 2007, in the matter you were involved in? I think they say Lufateju versus Johnson.
Yes.
Was that part of what exacerbated this case? In terms of people getting this huge remand?
No. What Lufateju and Johnson is saying is when there are cases whereby, I mean, say terrorism, say murder, or any other very serious offense, corruption, it may be difficult to arraign the suspect within 24 hours as required by law in a place like Lagos, or 48 hours where we do not have courts within a radius of 40 kilometers. If you are therefore going to keep the person beyond 48 hours, you will approach a court for an order, and the court will grant the application if you show that there are very serious allegations of involvement, reasonable suspicion. The court will give an order for 14 days in the first place. So as soon as the order is given and you are arrested, if you are affected, you have the right to ask a lawyer to go to court, challenge that detention order, because I've not committed any offense. I was not even in the country at the time the offense was committed. And so it's subject to review, periodic review, but not more than 56 days altogether. So if by 56 days you have not been able to complete and file a charge, of course, the detainee will be asked to go home, either conditionally or unconditionally. So, but it's the one of Terrorism Act that talks of 45 days or 90 days. Again, this is being challenged now. In the case of Shawara.
These are some issues on paper. I mean, the law is clear on these issues. But then you mentioned, for example, the Navy detention, which you have talked about in recent times. I remember the NHCR coming out to say that it's not our fault. I mean, we don't enforce this thing. So there's the law on paper. But yet again...
No, with respect, I think that was an unfortunate statement.
Okay,
so
right.
I'm trying to get in touch with the Executive Secretary. I do not think that statement will have been authorized.
Why?
What is the work of National Human Rights Commission?
Is it
other than to protect the rights of people? And when you are told this is a court order that Mr. Falana should be released from detention, and you say a Human Rights Commission, we are not concerned. What is your duty?
No, I think the question is enforcement.
No, you see, for instance, in this case, when I had the names of 40 people, I wrote to the National Human Rights Commission. In fairness to the body, it wrote to the Navy, where is your defense? And they sent me the letter that the Navy did not respond. Only to be told now a couple of days ago that, it's not our business to enforce a court order. The court gave orders in respect to only 15 out of about 100 people. What will have stopped the Human Rights Commission? Because the Army, the Nigerian Navy authorities, told a lie by saying that, we have sent all of them to the EFCC. As a private lawyer, I have found out from the EFCC that nobody has been sent there. So what stopped the National Human Rights Commission? If you get such a letter, you say, which of the departments of the EFCC? We have gone there, nobody is there. And that will have solved the problem. So instead of saying, it's not our business to enforce. Whose business is it to enforce court orders for the release of people?
So I think over time we've had this issue. So there are court orders given. You've spoken about this time and again. Court orders given, and it appears as though the institution responsible is not respecting that court order. So I think in this line also there might be a court order, but
that's where the attorneys general come. The attorneys general come in there, because no government, be it colonial or indigenous, military or civilian, would disobey a court order without the connivance of the Attorney General. Because when a court order is given, what a government does is to ask the Attorney General, what do we do? If the Attorney General says, sir, Mr. Governor, Mr. President, we've got to obey this order, the order will be obeyed. But if the Attorney General says, don't worry, we'll file an appeal, we'll stay the execution of the judgment, of course, the governor or the president will feel relaxed. That's why you are now told these days that national security supersedes or takes precedence over court order.
But
I mean,
are
that
those
is
provisions,
a backward statement.
But are those
Because
provisions not
national security
not right?
is to be determined by the court. You bring out the files for the court to determine whether the detention of somebody is in the interest of national security. I was involved in one of the cases. And what did the government say? Office of the Attorney General said, my lord, if we release these people, they may be attacked in town. And that will lead to breach of the peace. And the court said, hey, don't say that. If you know somebody may be attacked, provide him with security. But you can't put somebody in custody and say, for protective custody.
Yeah,
you
but
have Ebola,
just a little more clarification.
which is an infectious disease.
If the Attorney General says, well, we'll file an appeal, and isn't that permitted in law?
No, you can file an appeal. But even under the military, the case of Nigerian Army and Mowari, it has been decided by the Court of Appeal that no court can stay the execution of a judgment which stipulates, to the effect that anybody should be released. So you can file your appeal and pursue your appeal. But once there is a court order that somebody be released unconditionally or granted bail, you can't stay the execution. It's not like a landed property where you can say, oh my lord, stay execution. You can't stay execution with respect to the liberty of a citizen. But what even happens here is that no court has stayed the execution of some of the judgments, the orders of court. And yet, people do not care. But again, why it is painful? Why it is painful? When the current secretary to the government of the Federation, the current one, Mr. Mustapha Boss, was the chairman of the NBA in Yola in 1987, under the leadership of Alawa Kabashonu as president of the bar. Mr. Mustapha Boss complained to the bar that another of a court in the old Bongola state was being disobeyed. The entirety of Nigerian lawyers met. They said, no, we're not going to allow this. Never in our country. We're going to allow a government to disobey a court order. And the leadership of the bar ensure that we boycott their courts. One order. In my latest compilation, I've compiled about 32 court orders being disobeyed flagrantly by the government of Nigeria. And it's not okay. It's not in line with the rule of law.
What do you think, brings that to bear? What makes governments
impunity, official impunity, which was not part of our system. Do you know the most painful one is that General Buhari, as a military dictator, comply with all court orders for the release of citizens. And I have not less than 13 of them. 2 of them were detained on Itaoko, the most notorious detention center in Nigeria at the material time. Close to the Atlantic Ocean. In fact, you couldn't access the place with a car. So the government will use helicopter to go and drop detainees on the island. But whenever the court, on few occasions, that the court ordered that people be released from custody, they were released. It is therefore for me totally contradictory. In fact, it's ironic. Very ironical that President Buhari, who now says he's a converted Democrat, will allow his administration to disobey court orders.
It would seem then, Mr. Falana, that there is some tussle between human rights and rule of law.
No, not at all. Human rights.
Because some policemen have been quoted to say that human rights is not absolute.
No, it's not the police. It's in the Constitution.
Okay.
Human rights. Majority of the human rights. Even right to life. It's not absolute. If you kill and you are charged, the law may see that you be killed too.
Could that
there
then
is
be the reason?
No right that is absolute.
Could that then be the reason why government is saying, okay, look, because of these, some permutations that say, look, this law, this judgment of the court, we're not going to obey it on this premise that you're talking about?
No, it is not. It doesn't lie in the mouth of an attorney general or the president of a country to choose and pick which orders of court to obey. When you do that, you are reducing the country to the status of a banana republic. And I'm saying that even under the previous military dictatorship, we didn't allow it. And that is why the bar has to rise up now and take its rightful place.
Now that you bring up the bar, we have about 105,000 lawyers, I mean, at least in Nigeria. That's about one lawyer to 1,000 Nigerians, 1,900 Nigerians. And this obviously makes them responsible for a lot of these issues. So moving forward, how should lawyers rise to the occasion and ensure that some of these issues don't keep repeating themselves?
Okay. We have 125 branches of the NBA. Each of the branches has a human rights committee headed by the vice chair of the branch. If the NBA would be prepared, if those branches would be prepared, like the Korodu branch currently does, the sky will be there. I mean, the opportunities, the indiscriminate arrest and detention of people will cease. Because if the bar can ask the chief judge, my lord, you have, my lady, you have designated chief magistrate, can we have their list? Then you go to those magistrates. When are you visiting the police detention centers in your area of jurisdiction so that we can accompany you? We can even bring the media. Because once the police or other detention authorities are aware that they are going to have their places inspected every month, everybody will sit up because there's a penalty under the law for those who violate the rights of people.
And will that also address the military detention camps that you talked about?
Of course. For instance, when some Cameroonians were illegally arrested last year in Nigeria, they were kept in an underground cell in the Defense Intelligence Agency barracks in Abuja. I couldn't believe because I was being told by the country director of the Refugee Commission, United Nations Refugee Commission. I couldn't believe that. Recently, I've also had people who have been released, okay, including civilians and military officers who said were kept in an underground cell in the same facility. Now we are taking steps. We are going to court next week to have that place, abolished in line with the Anti-Torture Act of 2017. So unless we take these proactive steps, nobody will respect the rights of Nigerians because there's no penalty for impunity in our country.
What about penalty for lawyers who also aid and abet to ensure that this kind of flagrant disobedience go on?
That is the business of the NBA because that's a disciplinary committee. If an attorney general says we are not obeying a court order, that is gross misconduct. The NBA must deal with it. Oh yes. You couldn't have done that in the past. You'll be held accountable. Again last year, I think February last year, I wrote to the Nigerian Bar Association. Many people had been detained for murder, kidnapping, and sundry offenses. Our attorneys general are not prosecuting them. So please, can we get them? Can the NBA call them to order? The NBA did not even react to the letter. Today, we have, everybody's, the Buhari regime is not prosecuting armed headers who have been arrested, herdsmen who have been arrested. No. It's not the business of the federal attorney general to prosecute cases of killing, murder, kidnapping. Those are armed robbery, state offenses. It's the duty of the attorney general of each state to prosecute those cases. Just last week, I was telling the Nigerian Army, the chief of defense staff, General Olonishakin, was alleged to have set up a panel to investigate a case of murder. Where have you got the authority from? We're then told, it's the president that authorized it. The president has no power to set up a commission of inquiry outside the Federal Capital Territory. That is a case of murder. You have to release the soldiers who killed those policemen and the civilians, told the police for investigation and prosecution.
All right.
I just read yesterday now that the army said, oh, we are going to court-martial them in just. You have no such power.
Well, clearly, so much to focus on. Always a pleasure to have you on, Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. We'll be back in a moment and keep focusing on this matter and hope for an improved performance. Join us again.